Top 10 richest people in India. Let's go. Number 10 is Kumar Birla, Lakshmi Mittal, Godrej family, Radhakishan Kamani, Shiv Nadar. Number 5 is Uday Kotak, Palonji Mystery. Number 3 is Hinduja brothers. Number 2 is Gautam Adani. And number 1, the man himself, Mukesh Ambani.
The weirdest world records of all time, part 5. Zoe Ellis set a world record by stopping the blades of fans using just her tongue. She managed to stop the blades of 2 fans 32 times in 1 minute. So if anyone asks what that tongue do, she got receipts. Next up is Mr. Methane, a superhero who set a world record for the longest fart, and his toot lasted a whole 59 seconds. However, his record was claimed by Bernard Clemens, who farted non-stop for 2 minutes and 42 seconds. Christian Rodriguez just set the world record for the fastest 100-meter sprint in heels at 12.82 seconds. And what's crazy is he was only 3 seconds slower than Usain Bolt. Finally, Tim Cocker is known as the greatest drinker in the world. In 2014, he absolutely inhaled a 500-milliliter bottle of water in 1.75 seconds. Many people have matched this record, but none have proven to beat it.
Scary stories about Disneyland, except this one there's actual proof. One time a guy went to Disneyland and was waiting to ride the roller coaster on Space Mountain. He was standing in line when a guy with red hair came up to him and started talking to him. He seemed nice, but he was a little bit odd. But the thing is, when the ride was over, this red-haired man literally vanished into thin air. The guest reported this incident and was told that he was alone the entire time. This guest might have just encountered a ghost people know as Mr. One Way. Rumor has it that he's the ghost of a man who passed away while on the ride in the 1970s. He always vanishes right before the ride is over, and he likes to talk to people who are riding the roller coaster alone. People have also reported seeing him in the cast member locker rooms. Follow if you want a part 2 because there's so many ghost stories about Disneyland.
Let's talk about one of the creepiest podcasts you can listen to. Nocturno, Tales from the Shadows. This is a podcast that if you scare easy, maybe don't listen to in the nighttime. Hosted by Danny Trejo, Nocturno is a terrifyingly immersive podcast that mixes modern horror with the scariest Latin American legends and myths. With an extremely horrifying sound design, extensive detailed storytelling, and a very talented voice cast that includes Danny Trejo, of course, Christina V, who voiced Killua from Hunter x Hunter, and Sailor Mars from Sailor Moon, Michael Cimino, who you might know from Love, Victor or Until Dawn, and our very own Adam Barrera, aka Adam the Flop. Honestly, best podcast to listen to in the nighttime if you really want to get scared. But if you scare too easily, maybe just listen to it in the daytime. The trailer for Nocturno Season 2 is out right now. Go listen to it to find out how truly terrifying this podcast experience is. The first episode premieres on October 28th on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts. Meanwhile, you should definitely go and catch up and listen to Season 1. And I'll see you October 28th, okay? See you there. See you.
Normal looking photos that have a disturbing backstory, part 18. The girl in this photo was arrested for torturing and killing animals. She filmed herself doing it and even posted it online. She hanged her dogs by their collars, nailed them to walls, and even shot them with an airsoft gun. She would then cut them open and rip out their internal organs. This sweet looking little girl is Jeannie, also known as the Wild Child, who spent the first 13 years of her life chained to a chair, and this photo was taken moments after she'd just been rescued. This normal looking scenic painting features the ocean with the night sky. However, it was painted by Adolf Hitler, whose dream in life was to become an artist. However, he failed the entrance exam to art school and ultimately gave up. These pieces of yarn in a first grade classroom are the trajectories of the bullets fired by the Sandy Hook shooter in 2012, who killed 20 children and 6 adults. The reason that the angles are pointing downward is quite disturbing when you think about it.
Morbid Facts, Part 836. When Disney casted Tim Allen as the Santa Claus in 1994, the studio quietly broke its own rule against hiring ex-convicts. Back in 1978, he was arrested at the airport while trying to smuggle more than a pound of cocaine and faced a possible life sentence before cutting a deal to inform on other dealers. He spent over 2 years in federal prison, getting out in 1981, then spent the next decade rebuilding his career until Home Improvement turned him into a star in 1991. So by the time Disney handed him the lead role in the Santa Claus, they were making one of the rarest casting exceptions in company history, turning a former federal prisoner into the face of Christmas. A recent medical case from Denmark describes a 39-year-old man who died within 26 hours after drinking water from a coconut that had been sitting unrefrigerated on a kitchen table for more than a month. When he punctured it with a straw, he noticed it tasted strange but kept drinking. Inside, the coconut had become contaminated with Aspergillus flavus, a fungus that produces aflatoxin, one of the most potent natural liver poisons known. Within hours, he developed abdominal pain, vomiting, and liver failure. And despite emergency treatment, he died the next day from drinking coconut water.
I'm pretty sure this guy encountered a skinwalker. Watch carefully. What the hell is that? I don't know, guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.
Morbid facts about the cast of Stranger Things, Part 6. Dacre Montgomery has been open about being raised by what he described as an abusive father. He said he grew up terrified 24/7, was routinely screamed at, and had his self-esteem destroyed before he was even a teenager. By 18, he was struggling with severe depression and body image issues, and he said he still deals with trauma responses from that period of his life. Matthew Modine has said he watched a man die in front of him as a boy, a cyclist who was fatally struck by a car just feet from him. He remembers seeing the man thrown into the air and lying lifeless in the road, and has said it haunted him for many years. Shannon Purser, aka Barb, has spoken about being hospitalized for OCD so severe she was terrified to leave her own home. She described waking up with daily panic attacks, fear of contamination, and self-harm intrusive thoughts until she finally received treatment. Eduardo Franco has openly talked about growing up in a dangerous neighborhood in Yuma, Arizona, where he and his family lived under constant threat from local gangs. In interviews, he said his house was shot at multiple times in drive-by shootings, to the point where his family eventually relocated because the violence became impossible to live around. Why didn't they bring him back? Why didn't they bring him back?
This is why you should never walk home alone at night. One night, a girl was at a nightclub with her friends. They were drinking and dancing the entire night. Her and her friends decided to leave at around 3 a.m., so she said goodbye and began to go home. But she couldn't find a taxi, so she decided to walk home. As she was walking, it was pitch dark out, and she thought she heard something moving in the bushes, so she began to walk faster. Suddenly, a man jumped out from behind a bush and blocked her path. His face was hideous. She tried to run, but he cornered her and grabbed her arms. The girl was screaming for her life and begging him to let her go. But the man's deformed face twisted into a creepy grin. The man then said to her, "Do you want death or smiley face?" She cried out, "Please just let me go," but the man said death or smiley face again. The girl didn't know what he meant, so she replied smiley face. The man then pulled out a knife and sliced the corners of her mouth all the way up to her ears. Now she had the same deformed smile as the man.
Knowledge you wish you didn't know. Every year people come to the happiest place on earth and sprinkle their loved ones' ashes all over the place. The practice is so common that the staff have given it a special code name, and when they catch someone doing it, they have to clean it up with an ultra-fine vacuum.
I'm sorry, but what? Seriously? If any of you have a cat or know someone with a cat, you're definitely going to want to watch this because you could have it and wouldn't even realise. There is a parasite that literally takes control of your whole brain. It's called Toxoplasma gondii. You can get this by cleaning your cat's litter, eating rare meat, or even just unwashed vegetables, so it's a lot more common than you think. But the scary thing is, once you have it, it doesn't go away. So scientists recently discovered that the parasite here actually rewrites your brain, which is insane to even think. From studies that have been conducted in people who are infected by this, it shows that they're more likely to take extreme risks, and also more aggressive behaviour tendencies. The scariest thing though is that it's estimated around 30% of people could actually have this, but wouldn't even know because the symptoms are so light. Over 2 billion people are believed to potentially be living with this right now. There's no way to really get rid of it. Some of the symptoms that you could experience if you do have this. One of the most common ways though is uncooked food and unwashed vegetables, so make sure you cook things through thoroughly because you could then get it and wouldn't even realise.
This poor girl encountered the Serbian dancing lady. If you don't know what I'm talking about, check out my last video. The Serbian dancing lady is a woman that dances the street at night.
She carries a knife with her, and if she encounters someone, then check out her encounter. It's believed to be bad luck if you make eye contact with her, which she did. It's scary because there's been so many sightings of this lady recently. What do you guys think about this? Let me know in the comments below. Stay safe. For more scary content, check out my YouTube channel, link in bio.
Most extreme beauty standards in the world.
Myanmar, neck rings. China, foot binding. Ethiopia, lip plate. Japan, Ohaguro blackened teeth. Malawi, chisel teeth. Japan, Yibet teeth.
Why would I make them so uncomfortable?
It probably has to do with your reputation.
I have a reputation?
They feel your methods, your theories are
spooky. Do you think I'm spooky?
Genius inventions that should exist everywhere, part 2. Some elevators in Asia have giant buttons on the floor that you can kick to mark what floor you're going to. This was designed to help people who are carrying things and can't press the buttons with their hands. There's a mall that lets you leave your dog in a safe spot while you shop. The spot has a security system so that only you could open them, as well as lighting and air conditioning. In the United States, there's a shoe store that lets you test the shoes on different surfaces. The test box includes gravel, asphalt, and even materials like Lego. Finally, there's restaurants that give you a controller with 3 buttons. The first button lets the waiters know when you're ready to order. The second is to let them know when you're ready to pay. And the third one is to cancel your order. The idea is to avoid the waiters from constantly asking you if you're ready to order.
New Year's glasses are getting worse. So you know how every year on New Year's, it's a big tradition for people to wear New Year's glasses, and on the glasses is the year. And the first modern New Year's glasses were actually invented in 1991, and years after that, in the 90s, the New Year's glasses were a perfect design. I mean, your eyes literally fit right between the nines. And in the year 2000, New Year's glasses became super popular, because they honestly looked super cool. I mean, they looked like regular glasses because the zeros, and from 2000 all the way to 2009, it was like this. But that's until 2010, because people got really confused on how to design them now. I mean, they were all over the place, but in 2011, things just got so much worse, because look at these designs right here. People really didn't know what to do, and this problem lasted all the way from 2011 to 2019. And in the 2020s, it's been even more chaotic, because the number 2 is bigger than the number 1. Yeah, we still have this problem in 2026. This has been an everlasting problem since 2009.
Here's some good things that are happening in the world right now. The person who just took this photo showing a rainbow has no end won Weather Photographer of the Year. A man who was crushed by a car and the stranger who comforted him while waiting for help just got married and celebrated by taking photos at the crash scene. A toddler was found safe after a German Shepherd tracked her for hours in sub-freezing wilderness. An 80-year-old grandma who just learned how to swim when she was 59 years old is now the oldest female Ironman finisher ever. She did this in Hawaii by swimming 2.4 miles, then pedaling 112 miles on a bicycle, and then ran a full marathon after that. The actor Neil Newbin from Baldur's Gate 3 says his performance of the game pulled him out of $34,000 in debt and years of not doing very well. He said not only saving his life, but reinvigorating. The Netherlands has closed 20 prisons since 2009 due to a significantly low prison population because of lower crime rates and a focus on rehabilitation. This is Rico, a dog from Portugal that was saved from being euthanized and is now a pet detective. Thanks to Rico's sniffer, he has already taken part in over 20 different animals being saved, including a capybara named Cinnamon who escaped from the zoo last year.
I'm about to ruin your childhood, part 2. Walt Disney didn't like Jewish people, abused women, and was a racist as well. The voice of Elmo was a predator that targeted minors. Mr. Mosby went to jail for killing a 21-year-old with his car while intoxicated. The lion costume from The Wizard of Oz was made with real lion fur. Dr. Seuss was a racist who abused his wife who had cancer, who eventually killed herself because of this.
Yo, I can't stop thinking about the fact that Cleopatra was born in 69 BC. For real. She was also born closer to you watching this video right now than she was to the construction of the pyramids, which would also make her born closer to you working alongside her in Heroes of History. The epic historical odyssey that starts you in the Stone Age and takes you through the greatest eras of history, working alongside familiar legends like Einstein, Cleopatra, Lincoln, Alexander the Great, Nostradamus, Plato, even Hercules, and everyone in between. Building your civilization from scratch, starting with agriculture and cave painting, going all the way up until the moon landing and beyond. Download Heroes of History with the link in my bio. This game is like the most addicting version of Civilization optimized for mobile, and you might even learn a thing or two along the way.
I'm going to show you maps that will change your perspective. This map shows the European ancestry rates of the American continents. The darkest red areas have 95 to 100% of European ancestry, and the darkest blue areas have less than 20%. All of the territory that is shown in red here is how much control Japan had on the date of their surrender in World War II. Just in case that wasn't clear. This map shows how many Popeyes locations there are per 100,000 people in every US state. Maine is the lowest with 0.1, and Louisiana is the highest with 3.3. This is a map of the railways in the United States, and this is a map of the railways in Alaska. Most people from Iceland are technically Americans in the sense that the North American plate runs through the middle of Iceland and controls where most of the people live. This map shows the cost per prisoner in the United States by state, and there's a pretty big variety where in Arkansas we're only spending $23,000 per prisoner, yet in Massachusetts it's $307,000 per prisoner.
Here's some of the scariest things that have been found by YouTubers. A YouTuber named Lewis Clark and his friends find an abandoned train and decide to document it on film. Most of the train cars are empty, but what they find in the caboose is nothing short of bone-chilling. They find a few sheets that seem to be stained with blood, covering something shaped like a body.
What is that? What the fuck? Oh.
They don't stick around to find out what's under the sheets, as the team runs away from the scene, jumping over a second sheet in the process. Due to TikTok's guidelines, the image you see now will be a blurred version of the original video, but you can find the uncensored video on YouTube.
Time Travel Tips, Part 19. Travel back to Los Angeles in 1951 and make sure you bring a notebook. Walk on the set of a film called As Young as You Feel. Write a note that reads, "You're terrible at what you do and you'll never make it. Signed, Arthur." Slide that note under a door marked with the initials MM. When she reads the note, she will be furious at the man who wrote it and never speak to him again. Marilyn Monroe will never marry Arthur Miller, which will save her life.
Here's some of the craziest coincidences in history. Part 2. A young woman was outraged when her husband said that he was going to leave her for another woman. After he left, she immediately regretted her life and threw herself off of the 10th floor. As she did this, her husband happened to be leaving the building at the same time. She fell directly onto her husband, killing him in the process, but ironically surviving herself. This ironic twist of events made its way into the Guinness Book of World Records as one of the strangest deaths marked in history.
How did she send a birthday card after she was murdered? It was September 2004 in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Brittany Phillips was just 18 years old, but she had big dreams. She was a gorgeous girl who was super close with her mum, Maggie. On the 27th of the month, they had this normal chat on the phone and both said love you at the end of the conversation. It would be the last time they'd ever say it to each other. A couple of days later, Maggie was like, how weird, I haven't heard from Brittany in a few days now, and she normally speaks to me every single day. She'd been calling, texting, but she hadn't heard a thing back. She had no idea Brittany was lying dead in her home. Maggie's whole life came crashing down just a couple of days later with a knock at the door. Stood there in the rain was a police officer, and he said to her, you need to call the Tulsa Police Department, your daughter has been murdered. Police had actually headed over to Brittany's apartment because they got a worried call off one of her friends being like, Brittany isn't answering my calls. She was like, could you just do a welfare check just to put my mind at rest? So they went over there, never expecting the horrors that they would find. After entering the apartment and creeping through the rooms, they suddenly saw 2 feet lying motionless on the ground. She had been brutally killed, essayed and strangled in her own bedroom. And one of the creepiest things about this case for me is that police said they could not be sure whether the killer was already in the apartment waiting to pounce while Brittany was on the phone to her mum, or whether they broke in after. But they did work out from the evidence at the crime scene that Brittany died shortly after that phone call, or at least between that phone call that night and the following morning. But it made no sense to Brittany's family and friends. She had absolutely no enemies. Who would want to kill this girl? She didn't even have a romantic partner or beef with any exes. There were just no suspects at all, but forensic teams did manage to collect DNA from the crime scene. Now, when they checked it on the system, there were no matches, so they were like, we need to check it against all of the locals. And 2 locals really stood out because they refused to give their DNA. Police were immediately like, right, okay, well, it's one of you 2 or both of you then. So they ended up going through a lengthy legal process to get a court order demanding that these 2 gave their DNA. But after all that effort, they weren't a match either. But the most eerie and unsettling part of this case came 20 years after the killing. Suddenly, Maggie got a call from Brittany's dad, who she was no longer with, and he was like, I need to tell you something, please don't be mad at me. He'd been looking through his belongings and found in a box a birthday card. Now, this birthday card had come from Brittany. Brittany had sent it to him, but here comes the really crazy part. The card on it had a post office stamp. This means it basically had to have been purchased at a kiosk or post office desk. And the date of the stamp was the 29th, after Brittany's believed murder date. How the hell could she have sent that card if she was lying dead in her apartment? Let me know your theories, because chillingly, this case remains unsolved to this day.
Let's talk about a very disturbing case that has taken place in Wyoming that is eerily similar to the Gabby Petito tragedy that happened back in 2021. Katie Ferguson, a 33-year-old mother of 2, was on a cross-country road trip with her boyfriend Adam from Alabama to Wyoming earlier this year in October. Towards the beginning of the trip, on October the 5th, the vehicle was stopped by an Arkansas police officer on suspicion of loitering. However, once the officer talked to the seemingly happy family, he realized no crime had been committed, and he let them go on their way. The vehicle was stopped again a few days later on October 9th, this time in Texas. Only Adam and the children were located in the vehicle during this stop. However, the police officer had no idea a woman was supposed to be traveling with the family, so again, he let them go on their way. Adam Aviles was stopped again a few days later in Colorado, and again was let go. The next time the vehicle would be spotted, it would look like a crime scene straight out of a horror movie. The car was located abandoned here at the Oregon Basin near Cody, Wyoming. As police approached, they knew something was terribly wrong. The passenger door had a bullet hole in it. The windows were taped over with garbage bags. The passenger seat was altogether removed, and there was dry blood found inside of the car. Investigators would notify Katie's family of what they found, as well as bring Adam Aviles down to the police station along with Katie's 4-year-old daughter. Adam denied any involvement with the crime scene or Katie's disappearance. However, the statement from the 4-year-old was enough to put Adam in handcuffs. The 4-year-old stated simply, and I quote, "Daddy hurt my mommy." Adam was being held on a gun charge, but is still yet to be charged with murder. As for Katie, she has not been seen since the October 4th traffic stop.
Slenderman was supposed to be fiction, it was never meant to be real. I thought this case was dead and buried until somebody said to me the other day, have you seen this Slenderman girl escaped? It was the end of May 2014 in Wisconsin. 12-year-old Peyton Leutner was a lovely, sweet girl. She was a really happy girl and she wanted to be friends with everyone, and that would kind of end up being her downfall. A couple of years earlier at school, she'd seen a girl sat on her own. Now this was Morgan Geyser, and Peyton felt really sorry for her and she wanted to make friends with her. She was like, I'm gonna see if she's okay. Nobody should be sat on their own at lunchtime. And so a new friendship was born. The pair then made friends with another kind of outcast at school. This was Anissa Wire. Surely making friends with people is a nice thing to do, right? Surely they wouldn't betray you in the most sickening way possible. It felt like Morgan and Anissa kind of got super close and almost left Peyton out a little bit. So Peyton was really excited when they invited her over for a sleepover. She was excited for snacks, films, gossip, not being lured into the woods as a human sacrifice. The two girls had become obsessed with the creepy myth of Slenderman from creepypasta. I don't know if you guys know creepypasta, it certainly isn't the edible type. Now, Slenderman was a totally fictional character, but the girls were kind of convinced that they needed to obey his wishes. The story goes that in order to please Slenderman, you basically have to sacrifice another human in the woods. It apparently lure children there to kill people. So like I said, summer 2024, the girls have this sleepover. Then the morning after, a cyclist is just minding his own business, cycling through the woods. He spotted something on the ground and he was like, oh my god, that looks like a body. It was a young girl and she was covered in blood. Peyton had been stabbed 19 times and had somehow, bless her, used all of her strength to drag herself closer to the road so hopefully she would be able to be rescued. Her so-called friends had lured her into the woods for apparently a game of hide and seek. They basically wanted to catch her unawares so they could attack her. The cyclist immediately obviously rang an ambulance and she was raced to hospital. By some miracle, she was able to get emergency surgery and she did survive. But this wasn't before a lengthy recovery process, bless her. She was left with not only physical wounds but massive mental wounds. As for her attackers, they were found not long after covered in blood with a knife in their backpack. I mean, what do they genuinely think was going to happen here? Not long after this, Morgan was diagnosed with schizophrenia. It turned out her dad did also have this. She originally pleaded not guilty due to insanity, but then she took a plea deal and changed her plea. Basically agreed that she could just be housed in a mental health hospital. That's not the last we'd hear of Morgan. Lisa pleaded guilty, but only to attempted second-degree homicide, but she was actually found not guilty due to mental illness and was just ordered to spend 25 years in a mental health facility. I believe in 2021-ish she was released. Locals thought that they were safe from Morgan now that she was being held in a facility and obviously getting the help she needed. But after apparently making impressive progress, they actually allowed her to go to this kind of halfway house. This was under one condition, that she wore an ankle tag while she was there. But at the end of November this year, she escaped. She cut off her ankle tag and fled with this 40-something-year-old. Now, thankfully, she was captured the next day at a truck stop in Illinois. She didn't get very far. She was taken to Cook County Jail, and apparently her friend Charlie said the escape was her idea.
Have you ever had something strange happen during Thanksgiving or the holiday season in general? Now, this story comes from a girl named Kelly. Kelly said when she was younger that she had this uncle and he had disappeared. No one in the family knew what happened to him. They could not find him. And then one day he just appeared. And this Thanksgiving that they were going to celebrate, the uncle was supposed to come and reignite with everyone. So they go to the grandmother's house and Kelly is having a good time and she's helping her grandmother set up and get the food ready, when all of a sudden there's a knock at the front door. So Kelly goes to the front door and she sees two of her uncles walk in, and behind them is this uncle who's been gone for many years. She said as he walked in the door, the energy in the whole house changed. It was very sort of aggressive and angry, and it just felt very eerie. She said her uncle had very long hair, had sort of this gruffy, scraggly beard. He had this leather jacket on and these ripped up jeans with these black boots. And he had this just plain look on his face. And his eyes looked lifeless. And she said he just wasn't the same guy that she remembered because he was always telling jokes and laughing and making everybody have a good time. Well, he comes in the house and he sits over in the corner in the living room. And this whole time during Thanksgiving, Kelly notices that he's just staring at her. And she said it just made her feel very uncomfortable. Well, at dinner time, they sit around the table. And she sits in a seat that is across from her uncle. And she said this whole time they're eating, he was just staring at her. And in her head, she was thinking, like something is off with him, something is not right. Like, why does he keep looking at me? And all of a sudden he turns and he looks at her and he gets this big smile on his face. And she knew that it was almost like he could hear what she was thinking. And so she kind of felt scared. So towards the end of the night, they get ready to leave and her uncle is getting ready to go out the door. And her grandmother says, go and give your uncle a hug. You haven't seen him in a while. Like, tell him goodbye. So she walks over to her uncle and she reluctantly puts her arm around him. She said he felt ice cold and he had this stench on him of like something rotten. So her uncle leaves and now it's just her and her grandma. And she decides she's going to stay the night at her grandmother's house and help her clean up. So finally, later that night, she goes to bed in one of the spare bedrooms. And about midnight, she hears her grandmother's voice say, Kelly, like, come out here. Come here, Kelly. And so she gets up out of bed. She walks down the hall, goes down the stairs. And as she gets into the living room, she turns and she notices the front door is wide open. And there's a wind sort of blowing in. And then she hears a noise coming from the kitchen. So she slowly makes her way around the hallway into the kitchen. And it's completely dark. She flips on the light. And that's when she hears a sound coming from the refrigerator. And as she looks over in that direction, there's her uncle with his head in the fridge. And he comes out and he has a piece of raw meat in his mouth. And she said he looked different. He looked like a monster. And she screams as loud as possible. And her grandmother comes downstairs and is like, what's going on? Like, what's wrong? And she goes, Uncle was here. And her grandmother goes, what are you talking? There's no one here. And there was no one in the house. The front door was closed. But she swore up and down that she'd seen her uncle that night. And she said after that, she never seen her uncle again.